So many of us grew up memorizing Surah Al-Lahab. It's one of the shortest chapters in the Quran, it's powerful, and it's pretty easy to recite. But have you ever stopped to think about the incredible human drama behind those words? The story that actually caused this divine revelation? Well, that's what we're going to dive into. And that brings us to the central question, really. I mean, think about it. Of all the people who opposed the early Muslims, why were this one man, Abu Lahab, and his wife, Jamil, singled out, cursed by name forever in Scripture? It's totally unique, and it makes you wonder, why them? Yeah, it's only 5 verses long, but this chapter, sometimes called Surah Al-Masad, is absolutely packed with family betrayal, public showdowns, and a divine prophecy that came true with chilling accuracy. So, let's get into it. How did this all start? Well, our story doesn't begin on a battlefield or in a secret meeting. It starts with a public gathering, right at the foot of a mountain in Mecca. And this one moment, this one confrontation, would change everything for this family. Okay, so picture this. One morning, the Prophet Muhammad goes up on Mount Safa and lets out this traditional cry of alarm. Everyone in Mecca hears it, they drop what they're doing, and they all rush to see what's happening. And then he does something really smart. He asks them, look, you all know me. If I told you there was an enemy army right behind this mountain about to attack, would you believe me? And they all shout back, of course, we've never known you to lie. So right at this peak moment of trust, he delivers his message, warning them about God's judgment and calling them to believe in one God. The crowd is silent, just taking it all in. But the first person to speak up is his own uncle, and he is furious. And this wasn't some polite disagreement. No way. This was a public curse. He screams Taban Laka, which means, may you be ruined, may your hands perish. He completely humiliates his nephew in front of the entire community. And it's this incredibly personal, vicious rejection that really sets the whole story in motion. And you know, that confrontation on the mountain, that was just the beginning. From that day on, Abu Lahab and his wife, Jamil, basically dedicated their lives to a relentless, cruel campaign against their own family member. I mean, look at this. This wasn't just a political disagreement. This was deeply personal and hateful. Abu Lahab would literally follow the prophet around the marketplace, shouting to everyone, don't listen to him. He's a madman. He'd get kids to throw rocks. And his wife? She would go out at night and scatter sharp thorns on the path she knew the prophet walked on. But maybe the cruelest thing they did was forcing their own 2 sons to divorce the prophet's 2 daughters. They used their own children to inflict the deepest emotional pain possible. It was in the middle of all this hate, this constant persecution, that Surah Al-Lahab was revealed from God. And it wasn't just a simple condemnation. It was a direct, divine answer and a prophecy. So let's break down how this incredible chapter is put together, verse by verse. Okay, look at this first verse. It's amazing. The Quran takes Abu Lahab's own curse, may your hands perish, and throws it right back at him. But the meaning is so deep. Ruined hands is this powerful metaphor for being completely powerless. Imagine a warrior whose hands are shattered. He can't attack with his sword, and he can't even lift his shield to defend himself. It's over. This verse was a declaration that all of Abu Lahab's power, all his plans, all his ability to cause harm, was already worthless in God's eyes. So this next verse tackles Abu Lahab's biggest point of pride, his wealth. See, he used to brag all the time that if this whole day of judgment thing was real, he'd just use his money to buy his way out of it. And this verse is a direct response. It says, sorry, your money is completely useless here. And that word kasab, what he earned, scholars say it also refers to his children, which in that culture were seen as your greatest earning. And as we're about to see, neither his money nor his kids could do anything for him in the end. And now we get to his wife, Jamil. And her punishment? Wow, it is the definition of poetic justice. She's called the carrier of firewood. Why? Well, because that's exactly what she did in this life, metaphorically. She was the one gathering the firewood of rumors, slander, and hate, and constantly throwing it on the fire of her husband's rage. So her punishment in the next life is to make that metaphor a terrible reality. She will literally carry firewood to fuel her own torment. And the surah gets even more specific with this final, devastating detail. See, Jamil was a very wealthy woman, and she was famous for this beautiful, expensive necklace she always wore. It was her pride, her status symbol. She even boasted that she would sell it to fund the fight against the prophet. So the Quran prophesies that in the afterlife, that same elegant neck, once covered in jewels, will be choked by a rough, painful rope made of twisted palm fiber. Her ultimate symbol of pride becomes her instrument of eternal punishment. Now, you have to remember, these verses were revealed years before Abu Lahab or his wife died. This was a living prophecy for everyone to see. So, did it come true? And more importantly, what can we learn from it today? And boy, did it come true. Every single detail. About a decade after this surah was revealed, right after the Muslims won the Battle of Badr, Abu Lahab caught some kind of infectious disease and died. And his death was so gruesome, so humiliating, that his own family was disgusted by his body. His sons refused to touch it. They just left it to rot for days before finally hiring some people to just push it into a ditch. Just as the Quran predicted, his wealth and his children were of absolutely no help to him at all. Okay, so this is way more than just a history lesson about divine punishment. The story of Abu Lahab and Jamil is loaded with timeless lessons about how we behave and the consequences of our actions. So, what do we take away from all this? First, it's a clear principle. If you declare yourself an enemy of God's message, you're picking a fight you can't win. But maybe the more personal lesson here is about being an enabler. Jamil wasn't just on the sidelines. She actively helped and fueled her husband's hate. And that's a huge warning sign for us. When we see a friend or a family member getting into gossip or negativity or hate, our job isn't to cheer them on, to throw more firewood on their fire. Our job is to try to guide them away from it. And really, that's the final question this story leaves us with. In our own lives, in our daily conversations, in the things we share and the attitudes we encourage in other people, are we trying to put out fires, or are we the ones carrying the firewood that helps them burn bigger and hotter? It's definitely something to think about.